Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 182 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. You can try StrengthCoach.com out for 3 days for just $1, and if you have a staff of 2 or more, and you want to sign up as a group, we have a special membership offer for you, up to 50% off, depending on how many people you got. Check it out at StrengthCoach.com. All right, I'm your host, Anthony Renna. The show notes are located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, shoot me an email to StrengthCoachPodcast@gmail.com. All right, on the Coach's Corner, I spoke to Coach Boyle about insurance, a forum thread about why women want to train, another forum thread called bench press technique, and who's a sport scientist. That's an article from Bob Alejo. That and much more coming up on the Coach's Corner in a little while. Aaron McGurr from Perform Better joins us to talk about the current sale, some education, and the new Triton sled. For the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, Alan Cosgrove is on to talk about ambassador programs. For the Art of Coaching with Exos, Brent Calloway is on to talk about forming a system in the team environment. For the Functional Movement System segment, Brett Jones is on to talk about the second principle: protect, correct, and develop. Coach Dose will join us for a short segment on his topic, Power Evolution, at the Complete Speed and Power Summit. You want to check that out. They're almost sold out. And for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, I have Brendon Rearick on. He's the co-founder of Movement as Medicine, as well as the Certified Functional Strength Coach, former MBSC employee. Brendon's on to talk about how he paid off his student loan by the age of 25, how his program has changed since he's not working at MBSC anymore, how PRI, FRC, gymnastics, yoga, and CrossFit have all affected his programming. I also talked to Brendon about being diagnosed with aplastic anemia, which is bone marrow failure, how his life has changed and the struggles that he's faced. And we just launched a t-shirt campaign called Collect Moments, Not Things, to help him with his expenses. So please think about buying a t-shirt at booster.com/collect moments to help contribute. We have a nice Collect Moments, Not Things t-shirt, and all the proceeds are going to help Brendon with all of his expenses for him and his family. I'll have a link on StrengthCoachPodcast.com as well. So that and much more coming up with Coach Rearick in a little while. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Anthony. How are you?
All right. Been following the NCAA hockey playoffs. Good to see some Boyle guys in there. Devin McConnell versus Brajesh Patel, who's having an amazing year. Quinnipiac's been won just about all year. Sean Skane was up there for BU, but those guys, Quinnipiac took it, and they're going to the Frozen Four. But good to see a lot of your guys out there doing some good stuff.
Well, it's funny. I think if you look at it, theoretically, I think it was at least 5 out of 8. Because I think Matt Shaw's working with hockey at Denver, and Russell DeRosa, who's an old Mike Boyle intern, is still working with the Boston College team.
Oh, wow.
So, you got Denver, BC, and then you've got BU and Quinnipiac and Lowell, at least. So
yeah,
I think we are having a pretty big influence in the college hockey world.
Nice. Coach, it's almost going to be like a public service announcement from me, but have you ever dealt with an insurance, like how much insurance claims have you dealt with in your businesses? And what was your experience with it?
Insurance, like people like suing us?
Oh, no. I meant like you had something happen, like I had the flood, the pipe burst.
Oh, actually, so for us, I would say in our business, I would almost say it was 0. I don't know if we've ever had like a natural disaster that caused us like something like you had. It's crazy.
Yeah, so you've been in business for a long time. You pay probably pay a little more than I do. I've been paying about $1,200 every year for my insurance. So I've been here for 8 years. But yeah, I had that pipe burst, and the insurance thing. It's a nightmare. I mean, first of all, they don't pay you for the first 72 hours of loss of business, right? That acts as their deductible in the loss of business section, which is different from your equipment section. So if something happens and you go out of business like I did for 6 days, they start giving you the loss of business interruption money after 72 hours. So that kind of sucks. That's the first thing. And then, they go over everything and, you still have a deductible for that stuff. And then they take a depreciation. So for everybody that doesn't know that, you should, check your policy. Obviously, if you're going to pay a less deductible, you're going to end up paying more every year. So my deductible is $1,000. So I had like a $6,000 claim altogether, I think. And basically, between the loss of business and then they take the deductible and then they take 20% depreciation. So it turns out to be like, I don't know, something like $3,300 where they're going to send me a check for. Meanwhile, the Kaiser and the Kaiser compressor and the speaker alone cost me a little over $2,000. So it's a good thing I have a nice landlord who gave me a break on some of the rent for March that I was able to kind of even things out. But I tell you, the insurance stuff it's rough.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, it's a nightmare. We had a small house fire one time where the guys that were painting our house lit our house on fire, and they were using torches to take the paint off. And it's a crazy process. You don't realize how crazy it is until you go through it. Because we had firemen who came in because there was smoke coming out of the siding, and when they come in, any door that's locked, they just open it with an axe. They don't ask you for the keys. They don't, you know what I mean? It was like, and part of me was so mad because at that time we had a 3-family house, so there were 2 apartments. And they literally just smashed the apartment doors in with an axe and went into the apartments. And, and it's the same thing. And then you're battling, for claims and trying to get money back. I mean, insurance companies aren't these huge behemoths that make all this money because they're giving it away. They're like the casinos in Las Vegas. They're not, it's not like they're created with the losses. They're created on the premiums and on the wins.
Yeah, and it's you're right. And, it's a hassle, too, because you have to do so many things. It's a good thing I have a good relationship with Perform Better because I put together my list and sent it to Erin and said, hey, can you give me an invoice of what this stuff would cost? Because I wanted to make sure that tax and shipping was on there as well. And so they did that, and that was great. And, and then you got to stay on top of people because they, adjusters don't care as much, And so I'm like on top of my adjuster. I mean, today is March 29th. This happened February 16th. The adjuster came on the 18th. I gave him all the paperwork on the 25th because it took, you got to figure, you got to wait to see what you lost, et cetera, because some things might not work. And then, then you're trying to stay on top of them, and I still haven't gotten the money. I just got the agreement like about a half hour ago. Like, oh, this is what we're going to give you. And now I got to call them and try to negotiate and say, well, this and that. It's just crazy, and now here I am. I already put out over $2,000 because I had to get the compressor and a speaker and some other things, and it's like, man, they're just it's rough. But yeah, it's a tough process. So anybody out there, just go check your insurance policy right now and make sure. And the thing is, you just don't know who to talk to and how to deal with everything because when it comes up, you don't read all the fine print. So
that's the problem is that you don't read the fine print. You don't realize what's covered, what's not covered.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to make sure everybody out there knew what was going on. Coach, there was a little bit of a thread, about, the female. I guess somebody was like going to talk about a morning spot and on a TV show and asking just really about, what they had wanted to talk about why women should train. And Elspeth came in and she was just, I understand where she's coming from. She's like, well, why do men want to train? But I think it's different. I think you said it too. We can't look at it like that. People are out there. It's a 9:00 segment. People are out there, and they not as many women do train. So we're trying to encourage women to train. Just give us your thoughts on that whole process.
Well, I thought her response was interesting because I thought she would kind of grab the bull by the horns there versus, and obviously, Elspeth has taken some stances as far as sort of the male-female thing in some other places in terms of speakers that perform better. And so I was like a little surprised by her response, but not a lot surprised. But I'm still hoping, I haven't looked in the last hour or so, that she does come back, because that's why I try to write a little more measured response. Like, hey, this guy, it's a 9 o'clock morning segment, and it's really more of a marketing piece. And how would you, and I guess my thought is, how would a female want to be marketed to? What is it that would, and that's why I was, almost the funny thing is I was going to furnish my answer. And then I thought, but I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this, because I'm not a female. Because my big pitch with women, and this is what I was going to say but didn't, is that the more muscle you have, the more fat burning capability you have. So if you really want to lose body fat, the best way to lose body fat is to have more muscle. Because if you think about the basic idea of burning fat, you have to have muscle to do that. The less muscle you have, the less fat burning capability you have, the less caloric expenditure you have. So the reality is that building some muscle is actually beneficial, because what you're really doing is you're building a bigger furnace, a bigger fat-burning machine for you to be able to get the body fat off. Because we always talk about, and this goes back, I think Alan Cosgrove and Rachel have done some really good stuff with like the idea of being skinny fat and seeing people who really don't have a lot of muscle mass, but also have a lot of body fat. And they're the kind of people that I always think they're the ones that look good in clothes but not good in bathing suits. And so it's that idea. And I think that's what, people, if you look at like Valerie Waters, red carpet ready, Rachel's skinny jeans thing, people talking about, look better naked. I mean, what is the pitch? And I don't really know. It would be interesting to see from a female perspective, what is it that's going to hit that hot button in a female?
I think
I would admit I don't have the answer.
And we have to be careful of, the analogy would be what you always said about gym equipment. Stay away from what you want, get what you need, right? And I think with when we look at the marketing, it's very similar. Like, we're kind of in this bubble, or this idea about training females. We're in this bubble like, oh, females should train like males and let them train and we should get them stronger. But, like what you were just saying, if you said that on TV, some women are like, whoa, I don't want muscle. I don't want to look like,
Exactly.
So that's the problem here, is that we're saying, we're seeing great videos of Angela Ruggiero, which we're going to talk about, benching 135 times 10, being strong. And, you talked about, I think, I forget her name off the top of my head, the hockey player that was in the ESPN edition.
Hillary Knight.
Beautiful girl. And, but wait, I don't know, was it 180? You should look at that picture. You want to look like that. But we have to be careful, because there are certainly people out there. So it's a tricky way that we have to think about wording these things.
Right, and that's why it's funny. That's why I was kind of like, hey, let's see if one of our female experts will weigh in. And that, as I said, so I was a little bit kind of taken aback by the response, but then I wasn't. I was like, okay, I get it. And so, as I said, I'm hoping that she'll come back with a little bit more time and something maybe a little bit more measured that will actually be a little more helpful.
Agreed. Coach, let's go back to that bench press. You posted a picture of Angela Ruggiero, Olympic champion, Angela Ruggiero. I love her. She benching 135 times 10. And then you were just talking about, showing the one touch. If the spotter touches the bar, then that's the last rep. But somebody did chime in. Chris Smith was talking about, hey, Coach, what's wrong with the force reps, especially for hypertrophy? 1 or 2 reps after failure, as long as the technique stays sound. I've always found that it's an important tool for people that want size and strength. And a lot of guys did chime in and kind of agreeing with you, like, no way, we don't want that team bench press. But you were talking about, it could be a useful technique, although you've never seen it. Just expand on that.
Well, I think the idea that you want somebody to work hard, and particularly, in a beginner, you want somebody to go to that point where they really can't do another rep versus, oh my God, my muscles hurt, or oh, that's hard, or oh, I think I can't do another one. because it's amazing how sometimes what people are capable of above and beyond. The problem is that you get that sort of polluted, slippery slope where you watch, two guys in the gym. And the reason I got it is one of the site members sent me a video, which initially I thought, oh, this would be great for the site. And then I watched it, and some of the technique was great. And then the bench press, almost every guy that was bench pressing in the video, there was another guy spotting him, doing some percentage of the weight. And I always think that's a really hard thing to quantify when you look at that and say, okay, if it's more than one rep, what actually happened? What do you do next when you do that? And I think that's the biggest thing. When you're looking at this idea of progressive resistance exercise, if you said to somebody, okay, Angela did 135 for 10, what do I want to do next week? I'd say, well, you either want to do 137.5 or you want to do 140, because I know we had a nice clean set of 10 at 135. If somebody spotted 4 of those reps and, bumped it a little bit more each one, then what do you do? Do you do that same weight again and try to only spot 3? Like how do you create that organized thought process of progressive resistance when you have this sort of randomized interference in the exercise? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. You're right. It's just, reliability of the test, right? We want to, where's the reliability? We want to be consistent so we can, it can be reliable, and you could use that as a measure. So it's good stuff. Coach, let's just finish up on, I love this. Bobby Alejo had posted on Facebook, who's a sports scientist? I text him and ask him if I could post that, because I just thought it was a great, it's really, we're kind of at that point right now with the kind of, the terms of like the job descriptions and the article, who's a sports scientist, and just kind of talking about this idea of we're seeing the high performance director, the high performance coach, the head of sports sciences titles. And he just kind of argued his way around the fact that no, I'm not. They're really not sports scientists, and I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Just comment on this idea.
Yeah, I think it's sort of what I would call typical Bob, in terms of Bob is a very simplistic, realistic guy, like basically saying this is bullshit. They're just giving people, giving them a bigger title instead of being head strength and conditioning coach or director of strength and conditioning or assistant athletic director for strength and conditioning. Then you're head of sports performance. Now suddenly you're your head of sports science. And it's the typical, I think, big business idea of bigger titles mean bigger salaries. And so suddenly you can justify, oh yeah, we're going to have a head of sports science who's going to supervise all this stuff. But then you look and realize they hired a guy who probably would have had the title of director of strength and conditioning or head strength and conditioning coach or whatever it is. Or then in some cases they go out and go another route completely, and they bring in a science guy. They bring in a monitoring guy, a guy who's primarily, his background is much more academic and really doesn't have any coaching experience. So, and what I had said because I had thrown a forum post up about Bob's article, was that you need to see this coming and realize it's much like when we first started to see the birth of the performance enhancement specialist, say, late 90s. And what happened was the muscle-head strength coach got left behind. He's basically now, that guy's been relegated to football. So if you're the big sort of power lifter or bodybuilder type guy who looks like he lifts weights, well, then you better be doing football. Because if you're not doing anything. Because nobody's looking for that guy or even that girl to handle their basketball team or their soccer team or their, whatever, field hockey team, whatever it is. Suddenly that guy that was, I always think you go back to the old NSCA days of the 80s, and that was every strength coach. Every guy that was there was a jacked up power lifter looking, bodybuilder looking guy. And the room was just packed with those guys, and they all, were more worried about how much they benched probably than how much the kids benched. And then suddenly, 15, 20 years later, a lot of those guys were kind of extinct except in football. And I guess what I'm trying to get guys to understand is you got to see it coming. You got to know that you better start understanding push systems and catapult systems and tendo units, and you better start to embrace some of this technology. And I don't know if I was talking to you the other day, or I was talking to somebody. I was talking to Mark Verstegen actually on the phone the other day, and he was saying, he's like, how long have you been using heart rate monitors? And I said, I think I was using heart rate monitors in the 80s. So, I mean, I've embraced the technology that I could when I could. From an affordability standpoint, we were probably one of the first hockey teams to have a Polish system in our weight room and to give all our guys a heart rate monitor. We always tried as best we could to stay current, and you have to be able to do that, because if you don't, you're going to be that guy who's sitting around pissed off that someone else got the job, and like it is in all of the time in every profession, that guy who didn't keep pace is the guy who's sitting around complaining about, oh yeah, so and so got the job and he's got so much less experience than me, blah blah blah. Hey, I get it, but if you didn't stay up with the information and the literature and the changes, then in some ways you deserve what you get.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad in that, and you have to just kind of be. I know Bob from the interview that we did last time with him. He was saying, he's got a lot of young guys on the staff. He's got a big staff, and he lets them kind of come in and present to him what they think is relevant and useful, and can they afford it in their budget, and then they go from there. So. Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, it's also, but think about people, when you say to people, oh, I don't do social media. I have a friend, doesn't text. And one of the things I always say to people, it's like saying you're going to go to California in a covered wagon and looking and saying, well, people did it before. It worked great.
Yeah. And
like, it did work great. When the Oregon Trail was still in existence, that was a really good way to get there. But we've come up with some better methods now. And I think that's, some people are kind of clingers in that way, in that they still want everything to be the old way. And my point is that this isn't going away.
Yeah.
If you look at the NBA has gone this route, suddenly the NHL, which I always felt was one of the cheapest leagues from a strength and conditioning sports science standpoint, teams have started to do it. Buffalo's done it, Pittsburgh's done it, Toronto's done it. And more and more, I think there will be more and more people looking for that guy who understands the monitoring side, the computer side, who can look at these things maybe through a little bit different lens, rather than just having, the guy who can work the guys out.
Yeah, and I always that's why
be more than that guy.
Yep, and I think Titleist, I always go back to Titleist, obviously that's my lens, but I think Greg Rose always had it right, because he said, look, we're going to build your team, but we're also going to teach you a little bit about the medical, what they're doing, and we're going to teach you a little bit about the golf pro. We don't want you to, fix anybody from a medical standpoint. We don't want you to teach anybody a golf swing. I just want you to know about it so you're aware of it and you could speak the language of coach. So it's all good stuff. You have to know that stuff. So, all right, good stuff. Coach, we will let you go, and thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, now it's time for the Ask the Equipment Experts, and I'm here with the lovely and talented, but mostly lovely, Erin McGurr. Erin, thanks for coming on.
I'm talented, too. You know that.
Yeah, I guess.
Deep down.
Deep down. Cool. What's going on? We got to start out with the sale. What do you got?
The sale this week, we are doing free shipping on orders over $59. So for some of the higher ticketed price items, you can pretty much get free shipping on them. So everything from TRXs and jungle gyms to ultimate sandbags, rollers, all of our bands, obviously, test kits, even the soft toss and elite medicine balls have free shipping. So if you want to stock up, now's the time, because you will get free shipping on them. So always good to do that.
Very cool. Let's go a little bit of education. I know you have a 1 day coming up this weekend, and then you got one more in Charlotte in April. Give us the rundown on that.
Yeah. The 16th, we're almost done with the 1 days. I can't even believe it. It went by too quick. We actually have, like you said, a 1 day this weekend in Seattle, and that's April 2nd. We're going to have Robert Dostromedios, Martin Rooney, Lee Burton, and Todd Durkin out there. So I'm going to say 3 out of those 4 guys are going to get the crowd pretty fired up. So
I was going to say
we
the
have
same
that
thing.
going. We have that going for us. And then April 16th in Charlotte, that's our last one. And we have Rick Mayo, Nick Winkleman, Lee Burton, and Eric Cressy. So those are the last 2, and then it's on to Summit season, and I can't even believe that it's almost here.
I know. I'm kind of feeling like I got to get to Orlando just to go.
I know. You have to. It's the first time we're ever going to be down there.
Yeah. All right, very cool. You know what, E? Actually, you do have something coming at the Perform Better Functional Training Institute. I just wanted to mention, I know you don't have a lot of details, but they can go on the other website for that as well. But it's something that I'm not even sure if they've done this yet anywhere else. So give us a little bit of info on it.
It's going to be the Certified Functional Strength Coach Level 1 and Level 2. So it's a 2-day course. It's Saturday and Sunday. I know we've done the Level 1 here before, and I know we've done the Level 1, or they've done the Level 1 a bunch of places. But I think it's actually the first time that we are having a Level 2. So I'm excited to see it. I will be here for most of it, so I'm looking forward to that. But should be interesting. I think we're going to be putting some information up on our website for that under the Perform Better Functional Training Institute tab. However, we do have some information up on the Certified Functional Strength Coach tab, so I would check out that website as well. But can I also mention, sorry, I'm totally throwing this out there. We just had Mike Mullen's seminar here this past weekend, and it was awesome. So if anyone has never been to a postural restoration seminar or listened to Mike Mullen speak, I would highly recommend it. It was amazing. So thanks to everyone for coming out to that one, and I enjoyed it. I feel smarter just from being around those people, so
all right.
It was a good time.
Very cool. E, let's just go quickly over, you got a product that you guys made kind of due to popular demand about, with size for the sled. People wanted something a little bit different, and they were asking you guys a lot. And like you guys always do, you accommodate your customers' wishes. Tell us about it.
Well, what we came out with this year, it's the new PB Extreme Triton sled. So for all those people that were using Prowlers before, it is similar to that. It is, I like it. I just like the look of it. So it's chrome. None of our other sleds are chrome. I don't think there's any chrome sleds out there. So I just like the look alone. But it is pretty different than some of our other sleds. Like you mentioned, the size, it's not as long. It's only 30 inches long. It's still a pushing sled. And it's actually, comparing it to some of our other ones, I would consider it our true pushing sled because it's the only sled we have that does not come with a harness. So I know our Drive Sled 2s and Sled Dog Elites, a lot of those all come with harnesses that you can pull the sled, but most people will actually just push it nowadays. So for the Triton sled, it is just a straight pushing sled, shaped similar to a triangle. It's got the 2 high handles coming up, and that's what you would slide the weights over. On the opposite side, where it comes to a point in the front, it actually has a 2-handle option. So people say it's a high and low option. Honestly, it's a low and lower option because they're not as high as the regular push handles. But it is pretty cool just because the feet are wider, so it does slide smooth across really any surface, preferably turf. But it does give you a lot of different options just as far as pushing. And the one thing that I like that also makes it different is we put a loop in the front of it, so you can actually attach some bands, ropes, straps, things like that, if you want to do more pulling exercises from different angles, which I know we've done a couple cool circuit things in here with some ropes attached to it, and it is not easy, and I hate it when I do it, but it's fun when I'm finished with it. But it is a new product for us. It has been doing really well. So for a lot of people that are looking for something similar to the Prowler sled, this is a pushing sled. You can attach different things to it. It does have 3 different handle options to use, and it's a little smaller than the Drive Sled too, so I like it.
All right, very cool. Lots of pain will be induced with that thing. So, E, thank you so much for coming on today, talking about the Triton sled and some education, and as always, the sale. So, thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.
Perfect. Thanks, Ant.
Hey guys, this is Alan Cosgrove from ResultsFitnessUniversity.com here on the Business of Fitness on the one and only Strength Coach podcast. Thanks for all your emails and questions from this segment. And as always, I'm on the business forum, the Strength Coach Podcast, if you need to reach me directly, or on Facebook. This month's lesson is ambassador programs at your gym. All right, and I'm going to break down what that is. What you'll find is in every area of town, there are certain centers of influence, certain people who know people, right? So in your town, it might be the top hairdresser at the top salon in town, right? They see a lot of people. Or a massage therapist who sees a lot of people. Or the guy who runs the indoor soccer center, right? Or the golf pro. These are all centers of influence. In our town, exactly opposite our gym, there's a restaurant that is the busiest breakfast place in town. I'm talking on a Wednesday morning at 10:30, there's a 30-minute wait for a table, right? This place is packed. So we created an ambassador program for any of the staff there who want to partake in it. Now, they have quite a lot of staff, right? And not all of them take it. But we create what we call an ambassador program. Is they get a complimentary membership at our gym, right? They can come in and take any class. It's usually our essentials membership. This is a low level, or they'll get a generic program. But they can use our gym free of charge because they're our ambassadors. In exchange for that, they have to obviously talk well about the gym. They have to hand out our newsletters to some of their customers. And we ask for one referral a month. Now, you can track it and be really strict about it, or you can have a little more goodwill and just expect them to do it. But part of the reason is these people are going to come across a lot of people each month. And eventually, conversations may turn to fitness. And I want to be the only recommendation from it, right? So I take them out of the hands of my competition, right? And I put them into my gym as ambassadors, right? And their goal is to refer me members, so they get a free gym membership with training included. All you got to do is refer me people. You see 100 people a day. You work 20-something days a month, right? We could see 2,000 plus people a month. I just need one referral. That's how you keep your membership. It works very well to grow. So what you're doing is you identify centers of influence in your town. Could be a hairdressing salon is always a pretty good one. A boutique where they sell high-end clothes for females, another solid one. These are the places that you want to target, and then you create these people. It's basically a free membership, but it's not just free. Their job is to be an ambassador for the gym, right, and try to talk well about you and your services. And you fit them into a group class or a semi-private situation. So you're not doing a whole bunch of work for free, right? It's just taking up an extra space in the class, right? And that person should be sending you 12 members a year or one referral a month. Then it's up to you to convert them to members. So that is the ambassador program that we've been doing for a couple of years at Results Fitness. That's it for me this week. Check us out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. We're also on Facebook. And I will be back next time to talk to you guys. Thanks very much, guys.
Hi, this is Brent Calloway for The Art of Coaching with Exos. We're going to kick off a two-part segment on forming and refining the implementation of a true performance system within the constructs of the team environment. Now, here in part one, we need to identify what the term system actually means in the team environment and what are the key performance units that must be established first. So the term system is defined as a coordinated body of methods forming a complex or singular whole. And in order for this to work at a world-class level, these ideals and principles must be set by those who have the most power within the team. And that's usually going to come from either your administrative staff, your coaches, your head coaches, the assistant coaches of the team, and so forth. And the team's ethos or mission statement is going to be comprised of themes, which paint a picture for all to follow. That's players, that's coaches, it's staff, it's everyone. Some of these themes consist of smart, fast, physical, relentless, rock solid. All are common performance themes that lay the foundation for the performance units to be built upon. So I threw out the term performance units. What does that mean? The best teams in the world divide their systems up into the following performance units. You've got strength conditioning, you've got rehabilitation, nutrition, sports science, and sports psychology, or your mindset unit. Now, it's vastly important that all of these individual performance units all share the same theme created by those at the top. If coach decides that we will play fast, then he's laid the foundation for all of those units to follow. So because of that, the strength conditioning unit has to decide that they need coaches who can create field speed and resilient bodies that can hold up to the demands of the coach's strategy, right? Now, the nutrition team will need to fuel for low body composition and great recovery ability, since we're going to be stressing our opponent with our field speed and pace of play. The sports science unit, they're going to be tracking on-field speed as a key indicator of reliability and other data that is encompassed in that. And now for the glue that holds everything together, mindset. This piece doesn't just refer to what a sports psych says to our players, but actually what are the words being used during practice, and how are the coaches leading our team, and what type of key messages is our coach saying and preaching about? Does this messaging actually permeate the entire team environment and not just one department or the other? So when you've achieved all of these elements working in a united way, then the team success is just around the corner. To expand into more detail on this, catch me next week as we dive deeper into strength conditioning units individually. And I'll also be leading a full-day pre-conference symposium at Idea World in LA this summer in July. Would love to see all you guys there. For more information about Exos Education, please visit us at www.teamexos.com/education.
Welcome to the Functional Movement Systems segment. My name is Brett Jones. Today I would like to talk to you about the second principle, professional responsibility, also known as protect, correct, and develop. Gray did a fantastic job, went way down the rabbit hole of taking the 10 principles from the movement book and refining them down into 3 principles. Principle number 1, move well, move often, move well, period, move often. And then principle number 2, professional responsibility, protect, correct, develop. Principle 3s have a standard operating procedure that reinforces and supports the first 2 principles. But we're going to dive today into principle number 2, protect, correct, and develop. So once you've run a screen and you find your weak link, you've identified it as a leg raise or whatever the case may be. You properly ran the screen, you identified your weak link. Principle number 2 is going to kick in there. And up first in principle number 2 is we like to refer to it as protect before you correct, correct before you develop. So protect comes up first. You know, our first job as trainers and fitness professionals, do no harm. If we know somebody's having pain, we're going to stay away from that. We're going to get that addressed. We're going to refer that to a medical professional. If somebody's having an issue within a movement pattern, probably the most powerful thing we can do is protect them from the activities that are possibly reinforcing that bad pattern or putting stress on that pattern that they're having trouble accessing. So sometimes the best way to get someone to quit limping is to take the rock out of their shoe, take the pebble out of their shoe. They don't need corrective exercise. They need to stop overdosing or doing too much of a particular thing, or just take the stress off for a little bit. So we protect before we correct. Doesn't mean we stop doing things forever. It means we stop doing things for a period of time so that we can have an influence, have an impact on that pattern that we need to improve. So what you stop doing can be far more powerful than adding any corrective. We're going to red light those activities and exercises that directly challenge those weak links. We're going to train the green lights or patterns that they can access easily. Really want to not think correctives first. We want to think of, what do I need to not do because they can't access this pattern? If we look at a little analogy of plants and soil, if plants fail Maybe it wasn't the seed. Maybe it was the soil. Maybe it was the environment that seed was in that didn't allow it to succeed, or made it sick or ill, or whatever analogy you want to go with. So protect before you correct. Sometimes what you stop doing is far more powerful than any corrective exercise. Now, once you've gone through that process, you protected before you corrected, you can correct. You look at the algorithm, you identify the weak link to be addressed, find those things that create positive change in that pattern. Go as far as you can in every session. We have our corrective outline and algorithm. We look at making sure there's the requisite mobility for that pattern. Make sure they've got static stability, dynamic stability, and then work on strength and more performance-related events. But in that correcting, use the algorithm. Find the weak link you need to address. Find those things that create positive change. Improve that pattern as quickly as possible. Patterns that you identify as weak links should change quickly and efficiently. You should see change in that session that tells you that you can move forward. Once you've protected, once you've corrected, you get to the fun stuff. You get to develop. You get to move on to physical capacity, training, all those things that we want to get to. But remember, protect. Sometimes what you stop doing is more powerful than anything else. Correct the things that you need to correct. The screen and rescreening will tell you what those are. Create those positive adaptations. And then develop. Move into those patterns that you can create physical capacity in. Get to the fun stuff. Remember, organism versus environment. Don't always blame the organism. Sometimes you forgot to optimize the environment. Optimize the environment so that the organism can respond to the training, so that you can adapt to the training. Move well enough to adapt to your environment and training. Remember that corrections are supplements, not meals. This is not the meat of anything. Correction should be quick, efficient. So protect before you correct. Correct before you develop. Have fun out there. Thank you for joining me for this Functional Movement Systems segment. And we will see you next time.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach. And today I have on old friend Brendon Rearick. Brendon is former Mike Boyle strength conditioning employee who moved out to California. Before that, he started Movement as Medicine with Kevin Carr, and he's continuing that business along with the certified functional strength coach work that he does. Brendon, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ant. I've listened to all 181.5 episodes over the past 5 years, so it's a real honor to be on today.
All right, very cool, very cool. Well, you know what? We got so much to get to, so what I want to do is give me like the quick, okay, I went to college, I did an internship, I went to MBSC. Tell us your sequence of events. Talk, with everything, those major milestones, so we can kind of start to dive into them.
Okay, cool. So I think my story is pretty similar to a lot of strength coaches. I played football my entire life. That was all I cared about growing up. And when I realized I wasn't going to make it to the NFL, I was a pretty good athlete, but the D1 scholarships weren't, flooding my mailbox. I was like, how could I win a Super Bowl ring? And my first thought was coaching. And I was like, I love the weight room. I think I'm going to become a strength coach. And, lots of people told me that that's not a real profession, blah, 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 blah. And I went to UMass Amherst as an engineering major, actually. And that week I remember I was in calculus class and land surveying and the properties of concrete. And I was, nope, this ain't happening. So I switched over that day to kinesiology, and I got my kinesiology degree at UMass Amherst. I met my business partner now currently and coworker, Kevin Carr, and we became very, very good friends. We met at the fitness center at school, and then when I graduated, I got a job at a strength and conditioning gym. Which wasn't Mike Boyle strength and conditioning, and it was very it was a great learning opportunity because Mike Boyle's strength and conditioning is very much a bubble. You don't see a lot of bad things going on there. And I worked at a gym where I saw a lot of things that weren't great. And then I got the internship at Mike Boyle's, and I think I was one of 3 interns. And what happened is 2 of the interns quit. And then that week, 2 of our employees at Boyle's, 2 of the higher ups, actually left. And Bob needed somebody to run the 6 a.m. adult group. And Bob was like, hey, I'll pay you $20 to run the morning adult group. You in? And I was like, sure. So 2 weeks into my internship, I was hired at Mike Boyle's. And then it was kind of over the next 2 years, people started leaving. As everyone knows, Boyle's got a very large coaching tree. And 2 years into it, I fell into the internship coordinator position, which I did for 2 years, which was awesome. I enjoyed every minute of it. The hiring process, the teaching, getting them up to speed, and actually a lot of the systems that I still use today were created to help the interns that we now use for the certified functional strength coach. Then 3 years into working there, Kevin and I saw a need for getting our hands on our clients. And we're like, well, we don't really have the time to go back to PT school. Neither of us wanted to. So we're like, hey, let's go to massage school, see how this works. So we added that to our toolbox. I always tell everyone I'm a strength and conditioning coach first and a massage therapist second. And we did that for a year and a half, graduated, and then we opened the business Movement as Medicine right inside the gym at Boyle's. Mike was very gracious to give us the opportunity to do that. And we've had that business open now for, I believe it's going to be year 2 in April. Year 2 or 3, I can't remember. And then from there, about, I think 6 months later, we were talking about creating a certification and educational course. And I got locked into that with Coach Boyle, Kevin Larrabee, and Kevin Carr. And that's been going now 2 years. We have level 2, our first level 2 coming up in 2 weeks, which I'll actually be traveling home to Boston for that, which I'm very excited about. And then a year later, a little life event kind of came in, and I am a father now, and it required a move out to California, which I did. So now I'm out here in California. I work for myself. I tell everyone I'm the traveling trainer. So I do some in-homes. I work at a couple different gyms. I still travel for the certified functional strength coach. Chris Poirier has asked me to speak at the Perform Better Summit in Chicago, which I'm very, very excited about.
Very cool.
And I train some triathletes, some professional athletes, an NFL football player out here, and then just, the regular general pop, and still run those businesses and still run my own business. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, but you're leaving a big part about your health. So tell us a little. We're going to get to that later, but
okay.
Tell us what is going on with your health and when you found out in relationship to moving out there.
So I moved out here in October of 2014, and first 3 months that I was here, I really focused on taking care of myself. And then about around New Year of 2015, I started working out here. And then about 6 months of working, I had some weird bruising that, you run into a table and you see a bruise and you're like, hey, I had bruises all over my legs, my shoulders, and I couldn't explain any of them. And then I took a flight of stairs, and about halfway up the stairs, my calves burned so bad that I had to stop. And I was like, all right, this isn't good. So I had just moved out here. I had just gotten health insurance, thank God. And I went to the doctor, and I walked in, and they knew something was up, and they got me blood work. And that day, my doctor calls me up and says, you need to go to the emergency room immediately. So I get there, they sit me down. First doctor tells me they think I have leukemia, which, my head is spinning at that point. And they turned me over, and if anyone knows me, I'm deathly afraid of needles. And now I'm deathly afraid of drills because they took a bone marrow biopsy, which is not anything I wish upon anybody, but they need to be done. And they did it. They came back they didn't have a diagnosis yet, so they sent me to Stanford, which is a research hospital, and Stanford diagnosed me with a very rare autoimmune disease. It's 1 in a million or 2 million chance, and I think it's because I'm a 1 in a million guy. At least that's how I conceptualize it. And it's called aplastic anemia. So basically my body attacks my bone marrow stem cells. So I can't create platelets, which clot your blood, which explains all the bruising. I don't create hemoglobin, so that explains the shortness of breath and the lightheadedness and the burning in my calves when I walk upstairs and on inclines. And then the white blood cell count is very, very low, so my ability to fight infection was not there. And they lump it into a category of leukemia and lymphoma because it's the same symptoms. It's not considered a cancer, but they're kind of all in the same wheelhouse. So yeah, I was diagnosed in June of 15. So we're almost coming up on a year here, which is mind-boggling to me. I got a week-long chemo treatment in September of last year, and then I've been on a pretty heavy dose of drugs until this past month, where my doctor cut everything down to one drug, and I'm feeling pretty good. The drugs have worked where mentally I'm in remission, I tell everyone, but physically my body is not there yet. So we still have a few more months to see what's going on, and I got to keep living my life. So my doctor gave me full clearance to live my life as is, and we'll see what happens over the next few months here.
Yeah, wow. I mean, obviously, I've been following for a while, but pretty crazy. And obviously, here you are. And we're going to talk about your diversified portfolio and how important that is later. Because, you have the company, you have a piece of the certified functional strength coach, and you have movement as medicine and your personal training. And you're a massage therapist. So you have some options in terms of work. And it's just so important. I can't stress enough, to have, we all need to diversify our work portfolio into different things and maybe have something online or some kind of income, because when these things come up, I mean, obviously you had a child and you moved out there, so that's going to be a little expensive. And then, then you're dealing with not being able to work for a while, and now you're slowly getting back to work. But so, it's crazy, but it's important. We have to prepare for in the best way we can. And we have to be nice to people so we can maybe ask them for stuff later on too, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to get to that. We're going to be doing a T-shirt. You started this great kind of collect moments, not things campaign. And we're going to be doing a T-shirt drive for that. And we'll tell everybody about that in a little bit. But let's go back. You know what I want to talk about? You wrote an article a couple of years ago that I think every young strength coach who's got a student loan out there really needs to hear. They need to see that article. But let's give us a rundown of you paid your college loan off pretty much while going to massage school and, working at Boyle's, working your butt off, not going on vacations, really limiting your funds. But you were paid it off by what, 25?
Yeah, so I paid off my school loans in 2 years. And it was a $65,000 loan. And I basically made that my goal. So everything that I was doing was, all the extra money I had was going right to that, to get that debt off the table. I started to get it out of my mind, to not owe anybody anything. And like you mentioned, it's been, thankfully I did that, because it's been one less headache to think about with my current situation, having to pay medical bills and having a daughter now and stuff like that. So yeah, I really, really set my mind to that goal a few years ago to get that done.
How, if you were going to tell, if somebody's out there, I'm 22, I'm a senior right now, and I have a $65,000 loan, tell me the process that, the advice that you're going to give me. Tell me how I can do this.
All right. Well, so the way I did it was I took the number 60,000 and I started cutting that down by months, and I said, okay, in 12, if I want to pay this loan off, say in 2 years, then this is how much I'm going to have to pay off each month. So if this is what I need to pay off each month, this is what I need to make each week at Boyles. And then I said to myself, okay, so how many clients is that? And how many hours is that on the clock? And then you find that number, and then that number becomes your motivation. So say it's like, I need to make $100 a day, 5 days a week in order to be able to pay this loan. And also you've got to account for all your other expenses for rent, stuff like that. And it's actually another good funneling piece into the collect moments, not thing idea. So I didn't expect this quote that I found sophomore year of college to become kind of my MO and people associate with me, which I'm totally cool with. That wasn't my intent. It was just to share this thought process that I much rather spend my money on moments than on depreciable items, say a car, or I don't own a TV, so I don't have a cable bill. I don't spend a ton of money on clothes. If anyone's seen my style sense, it's zero, and I haven't probably bought clothes since senior year of high school, because thankfully I'm in a job where I get a lot of clothes given to me and shoes and stuff like that. But that's not what I was spending my money on, because I had this goal and this number that I had to meet daily in order to save that much to pay off these bills. So I would say find out what that number is. And, 2 years is a very lofty goal. And if I could go back, I'd probably turn it into 4 years, because I probably worked a little bit harder than I should have. I was at the expense of some personal things and relationships and sleep patterns that I probably should have spent a little more time on and a little bit less worrying about money so much. So I might make it a 4 or 5 year goal, but nowadays I do the same thing with it. So say, I want to make $4,000 a month. Like, okay, how much do I need to make per day, and how many days per week, and how many hours do I need to work to make that happen? So I guess I have a very mathematical and science type of mind. So that really helps me conceptualize how much work I need to do and what money I need to make. So I suggest people start there, and then, look at what you're choosing to do with your money. And you ask yourself, is this something I really, really need, or is this something that I want? So if your goal is to pay off these loans, you might not want to spend the money on the things you want and spend your money on the things you need, and then put your want money more towards the paying off your loans goal.
It's great stuff. I mean, you didn't get your degree, but you reverse engineered that. And I see what I did there?
I see that.
But yeah, that's awesome. I mean, obviously it's easier said than done, because you need the discipline to make sure that you stay on track. But breaking it down like that obviously is the best way to do it. Brendon, where is that article? Just so is that we'll link to it. But is that on Movement as Medicine?
Yeah, it's on Movement as Medicine. It's probably, I rewrite it every year with this year's statistics.
Okay.
So I believe it's probably like 4 or 5 pages back, but what I can do is I can repost it so it's kind of top of mind and then send you that link.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll have that link on traincoachpodcast.com for everyone to check out. Let's get into some of the training and the programming. You obviously are very current with program design, because you went through Boyles. Mike is a great designer of programs. He's worked with millions of athletes and, of all ages, as well as, the general population. And you guys are heading up the really the certified functional strength coach. You guys are really the driving force behind all the changes that are made, and it's the speech. The speech you're doing at the lecture at Perform Better is it progressions and regressions?
Yeah. So building an adaptable training model, which funnels itself into regressions, progressions, and then building out a program based off of that system that you created.
Okay, great. Talk to me right now about, you go out there, you don't, you're not working for MBSC anymore. You're going to have to do some personal training, working with, some athletes on the side maybe, but talk to me about how your template might have changed without maybe the restrictions of MBSC. And I'm not saying Mike's very open to stuff, and, you have to, you could talk to him about stuff. It's great. But you're still going to, like, for example, we were talking about before, if you want your clients to bilateral squat, you got to do it on a Friday night at 1 a.m. when Mike's not around. You don't have to sneak around anymore. What, has anything changed, or what have you learned not being in that bubble of MBSC?
So I think the big thing is I can kind of take a deep breath and exhale that, not just Mike, but, I have all the other trainers and interns and athletes and coaches watching what I'm doing. So you have to explain yourself. You should have a reason why what you're doing everything. But when I'm out here, I am in a little bit of a more of a comfort zone, I would say. So I do have that leeway to try extra things. I'm not worried about a younger trainer seeing it and then trying to do it with their client, So I have, tried some new things. I've back squatted some people. I've tried some other things, and then what ends up happening is, like your parents tell you not to do something, and then you go and do it anyways, and then they're like, I told you so. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. So I started trying some things, and then I realized, oh, shit, this is why Mike tells us all the time not to do this. So actually what ended up happening is that I went right back to what we were doing at MBSC, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So, there's a few nuances and stuff that I do change up. I think the big pieces is out here, I don't have access to Kaisers. There's no turf. There's no gyms with sleds, any of that stuff. So, my warm-up can be limited. I got to be creative sometimes. I do in-home training now, so I'm in people's, at the rooftop or their basement. So I've had to it's forced me to become more creative, but the proof is in the pudding still. So I tried some extra things, but it ended up being, shit, Mike is right. Yeah. Which I'm totally cool with saying. If everyone's read Kevin Neal's post, why I'm a Boyle guy or what it means to be a Boyle guy, I'm totally comfortable with saying that I'm a Boyle guy.
All right, good stuff.
Call me out on that, and I'm cool with it.
All right, good. Let's talk a little bit about, you always go into lectures and workshops, and you guys were always the first one. I mean, you and Kevin and Marco and Anna, you guys were the ones that I kind of termed the super trainers, right? You guys are not, you have the degrees, you're interning at the right places, you went to massage school, you guys have done, and you keep going to these continuing education. You've done the PRI, FRC, that type of stuff. And I'm gonna ask you about all this right now. I listened to Kevin Larrabee's interview with you on the Fitcast, which if anybody wants to hear more, it's some good stuff that we're not going over. But you took some gymnastics, and you took a dance class. You were taking CrossFit. If Mike ever found that out, I hope he's not listening. But you tried a bunch of different things. Talk to me about each of these things. Let's start out with PRI. What's your biggest program design influence? And what I mean by that is, what are the things that you're doing with your clients? Because we can talk about PRI and FRC all we want, and how great it is to crawl and how great it is to do a lot of these things, but sometimes they're just not practical. What are the practical things you've taken from? Let's start out with PRI.
So here are my thoughts on PRI, I suggest everyone take the course first. Don't just rely on my information. But the two exercises I use the most are 90-90 breathing and side-lying adductor pullback. And I've just found that those two seem to work the best for most people. I get the best results. And I usually start the first 3 to 5 minutes of my program with those two exercises, but no more than that. I go into these continuing ed courses with my lens of the MDSC system and then FMS and the SFMA, and then how does this integrate into all that. PRI really for me is a way to down-regulate the system. So most of us are really, really good at going from 0 to 60. We're not really good at going 60 back down to 0. And PRI for me is the 60 down to 0 piece. So I think the two pieces of PRI that are the down regulation of the sympathetic system, and also the second piece is movement variability. I think PRI teaches you how to get in and out of position that a lot of us aren't comfortable with, or we lose that piece for whatever reason from sitting at desks or the sports we play, whatever. But PRI kind of brings you back to those good positions and lets your body should be able to toggle from flexion, extension, internal rotation, and external rotation. You should never be stuck in one plane and have to do everything in that one plane. You should be able to get from side to side, front to back, and I think PRI does a really good job of doing that. But if you want to think programming, the two biggest things have been the 90-90 breathing and the side-lying adductor pullback.
All right, good stuff. Functional range conditioning. A lot of people know the names Dr. Andreo Spina. Dewey Nielsen teaches with Dr. Andreo. What have you taken away from that in terms of practicality for your clients?
So for practicality, like I said, I integrate it into what I'm already doing, and it's changed the way that I have my clients stretch and a little bit of the way we do warm-up. So for the stretching stuff, really getting into your end range position, whatever that is for you, everyone's different, and then you want to get strong at those end ranges. So it's not enough to just get at the end range passively. I want you to be strong at those end ranges as well. And the way we do that is, I love Spina's principles, is that he calls them pails and rails. So they're isometric contractions at end range, and you have to do them for both sides of the joint. And I think the best way to think about this is everyone's pretty familiar with the P and F stretch for the hamstrings, where you bring the hamstring to end range, and then they push down in your hand, and then they relax, and they get an extra, few degrees of motion, do it again, and they get an extra few degrees, which is great because basically what you're doing is taking the e-brake off the brain and telling the brain it's okay to get to these end ranges. And what Spina would tell you is that you want to get to these end ranges, and then you want to get strong. So you want to hold that position for 30 seconds to a minute, and then you also want to get the other side of the joint. So if you're thinking about the hamstring PNF stretch, it would be to flex the hell out of your quad and get that front side of the joint also activating as well. So you get the back side of the joint and the front side of the joint both working and getting strong, and that's how you kind of get people to these end ranges and create more ranges of motion. That I've just found that people can get more, like if you want to say flexible or whatever, they can get to these deeper end ranges easier when we work both sides of the joint instead of just, hanging out for 4 or 5 minutes in this pigeon pose. Like, let's add some strength to it. And I think the other piece of this is people who are already flexible. So say you're yogis that can put their feet behind their head and stuff like that. But it's weird, like yogis come in with back pain all the time and they can bend themselves in half. And you're like, how does this person get hurt when they're that flexible? And it's because they're not strong at those end ranges. So they have the mobility, but they don't have the stability. So get them to that end range and then start loading it with body weight and actively pushing, and like it doesn't have to be with weights with external load. It can just, the external load can be the person applying the isometric themselves. So really, FRCs changed the way I do my stretching work, I would say, the most.
All right, good stuff. Massage, not from your perspective, we know what you can do with, you could do a little bit more, but becoming a massage therapist, how has that kind of helped? Do you massage your clients first? Do you massage them a little bit after? Do you just do a certain section? How has that changed some of your personal training as well?
So I like to think that I'm a little bit more exact than a foam roller. So if it's something that I see as a need, say I take them through a screen, an FMS or an SFMA, and I see that this is the joint or the muscle or whatever that is at play and needs to be addressed, and I can get my hands on it, then we'll do it. The other piece of it is that I want to educate this person as quickly as possible so that they can do it themselves, and I'm also not afraid to refer out. So referring out is also a tool in your toolbox, don't forget. So I think the biggest piece is it's probably given me that extra tool at the beginning of the workout to see, and then I retest. So if I work on something, I want to see if it changed anything. I don't want to just work on it and then go right into everything else and not back up my work with anything. So I use it in the beginning probably more. I also have clients that I'll be like, hey, I feel awful today. Can we just do a stretch session and some manual work, and we'll do some isometrics and stuff, and we'll kind of, this is the 60 to 0 piece I was talking about. So if somebody comes in and they're like, hey, I've been running at 60 for 3 weeks straight, why don't we try to take it back down to 0? That's where things like, people are like, oh, massaging the neck, massaging the feet, like that's foo-foo, or that's, woo-woo for that, going to Massage Envy or one of those massage parlors. And sometimes an athlete just needs to have somebody put their hands on them and work their neck and their feet to down-regulate the system back to 0. So, that's why you feel so good when you get out of massage, right? You get up, you're like, oh, wow, I feel great, I can move, I feel relaxed. You go home and you sleep amazing. The problem there is that most people, they get out of their, wonderful massage session, they go sit in their car, and then they go watch TV and eat a bunch of popcorn, and then they go to bed, and they didn't do anything to keep that mobility or keep that euphoria feeling when they left. So I think I use it the most probably at the beginning of my workouts, and then as a auto-regulation piece, if the client comes in and is like, hey, I'm beat to hell, let's just do some manual work, and then we'll go there.
That's good stuff. Yeah, awesome to have that extra tool. Again, going back to being able to diversify your portfolio and becoming more valuable, adding value to your own brand. So it's good stuff. I love the story, and again, it's on Fitcast, but I want you to kind of go over a little bit about what you learned from gymnastics, and then you ended up writing, I think, an article about 4 things we all need to do more. What'd you learn from gymnastics, your time in gymnastics out there as an adult, and then how you've really taken some of those principles and said, I need to do a little bit more of this with my clients.
So when I moved here, as I mentioned, I didn't have any clients. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I signed up for everything. I signed up for yoga. Kelly Starrett is a good friend of mine and gave me a year's membership at his gym, which I'm very, very grateful for. So I was doing CrossFit. I did gymnastics. I started dance lessons. That's a whole another podcast we can do. So really gymnastics, it's funny. I started doing it. I'm like, we do a lot of this stuff at Boyles. Like I do a lot of this stuff in my warm-ups. And I think the big piece is the gymnastics floor allows you to do things like tumbling. You get that extra springy feel that you don't get on a hardwood, gym floor. And I think the big thing I learned from gymnastics is that one, well, by programming, we are doing a lot of gymnastic stuff, whether you think about it or not. If you've ever done gymnastics before, you are. That tumbling is a huge piece for kids especially, learning how to fall, and adults too. I love the way they progress things because they have all sorts of different wedge heights, all sorts of different blocks. The other thing is like every class starts with doing, Spina calls them controlled articular rotation. Every gymnastics class starts with that. You take every single joint through its full circle, full range of motion, and then you realize like, oh wow, we've been doing this stuff for years, but now somebody's put some science to it and explained why it works, like Andrea Spina has done, and now we put it in our programming, and it's the same thing with breathing, right? Yogis have been talking about breathing for 3,000, 5,000 years, whatever. And now somebody, PRI, comes along and puts some science and anatomy to it, and now we see it as a very useful tool. So, yeah, gymnastics. I think the other piece is we don't do enough tumbling. We don't do enough brachiating. And then I don't think we do enough frontal plane movement. And I'm speaking to the average person. I know, most strength coaches that are listening to this who have been following all the Perform Better stuff and all that for years are doing a lot of this stuff. But I really see brachiating, so hanging from stuff, chin-ups, pull-ups, just hanging from one arm, tumbling, just learning how to fall, even egg rolls. Egg rolls is a form of tumbling, if you really think about it. Just learning what the ground should feel like on your back. So almost using the ground as your foam roller. And then I think this frontal plane piece, that we live in such a sagittal world, so we're always moving forward. We run forward, we walk forward, we look forward. We don't spend a lot of time in the frontal plane. So I think those are the three pieces I took from gymnastics, and it kind of solidified that I was doing the right thing, and that these tumbling, brachiating, and frontal plane movements are important. And for the vestibular system, getting upside down is very, very important, especially at a young age, I think, to learn where your body is in space. And, as you get older, it's probably also something very important to keep in mind. I'm not saying you have to get upside down and do backflips on a trampoline, but, just putting your head below your heart. So maybe you do some push-ups with your feet elevated. That's kind of a form of getting upside down for some people. So you just need to scale it for whoever you're working with, just like all the regression progression stuff that we speak about.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think it's why Gary Gray's, or really Todd Wright, who, Gary Gray's his mentor, but Todd Wright's stuff, the lunge matrix, the split stance matrix, and locomotion really resonated with me because I felt like, cool, we're getting these people in, in the sagittal plane, in the transverse plane, in the frontal plane, and so it really kind of changed it up for me, especially from the warm up perspective. So, right. It's definitely
you're giving people options. So if shit hits the fan, you're giving people more options to figure it out. Is how I kind of like to think about it.
Yeah, and I'll use a golf reference. Ben Hogan was known for just practicing and practicing and practicing, and he always said the secret was in the dirt, right? That was how much he practiced. But what he tried to do is put himself in situations in practice that when he got to game time, when he was out there in a round in a tournament, then he said, "I've been here before. It's okay."
Right.
And I think that's where I try to explain some of like a lunge matrix to somebody. It's like you're learning to reduce those forces in all three planes of motion. So it's obviously really important. So good stuff. And once I started doing some of the MoveNet stuff and the tumbling and the those eggshells and moving around in circles and really tumbling over, people don't realize if you haven't done that and then you go to do it, you kind of get a little dizzy. But once you get used to it, it's fine. So
yeah.
But Let's move on to another thing that you did. Well, two things. I think the yoga. I think really you explained your experience with yoga by with this idea of gymnastics. Like you probably saw a lot of stuff in yoga that we were already doing, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where they got that warm up from in yoga. But the problem with some of the yogis is that they just get too crazy with it, and that's all they do. So I think that's where the FRC would come in, right?
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like anything, if that's the only thing you do, lift heavy weights, yoga, CrossFit, ride my bike, run. If that's the only thing you do, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. Doing 2 or 3 different things. We were just talking about movement variability. Do different things a few times a week. So if you're going to run 3 days a week, I'm totally cool with that. But maybe you should do yoga one day and then lift heavy weights one day, or lift heavy weights 2 days. If you're going to just lift heavy weights 5 days a week, why not throw a yoga class in there? Like if you just pick one specific thing to do all the time, you're going to get injured. You raise your risk of injury. And it's the same thing that we're telling all our youth athletes. Don't play baseball year-round. But for some reason, the adults get out of it. It's, don't run all year long. So that's kind of how I think of the yoga thing. Like, if you're doing yoga 6 days a week, you're asking for it.
Absolutely. Brendon, let's finish up with one more, and that would be CrossFit, because you're coming from public enemy number one. CrossFit's public enemy number one, Mike Boyle, who's obviously been a very vocal opponent of some of the things that they've done, and not any individual CrossFit, but I guess the argument would be if they're not following the workout of the day, are they really a CrossFit? But that's another story. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you learned from them?
So, number one, their community piece is unbelievable. The buy-in, the getting people there, people show up, they don't miss. They follow the diet, they read every email, and that's what every coach, client, business wants. So they have, people don't like the word cult, but really you're trying to create a cult. You want people to buy into you so hard that they'll do whatever you say. And that's the best feeling as a coach, because that's going to get people the results. And I saw that every single day I was there. Do I agree with all their programming? Absolutely not. But people buy in, and people get strong, people get fit. Injuries is another piece. That's a whole other thing to talk about. As you mentioned, not every CrossFit is bad. It depends on who the coach is, and progressions. Do they force people to use the workout of the day? But generally, overall, if you're looking at the big picture, the people that do post stuff online, the programming isn't the best, but the buy-in is incredible. So I learned a lot about community. I think was probably the biggest thing. And, for someone like me who has a pretty good background on training, I loved it. Because I know how to clean, I know how to snatch, I know my body, I know when to stop, I know when to push it. Whereas a lot of people aren't that familiar, or they don't have the mobility to get into these certain positions. Yeah. So personally, I really, really enjoyed it. Would I train my clients like that? Absolutely not. But that's kind of, it pushed me. It pushed me to my limits. I hadn't been in a workout situation like that since playing high school football, where we'd all lift together and we'd all train together. After football was over, I kind of just trained on my own, and you'll never train as hard as you do in a group as you do training by yourself. Like, I'm sorry,
yeah.
That's just mentally, that's how it is.
Do you feel like
the group piece and the community piece were probably the two biggest things I learned from doing CrossFit.
Have you kind of maybe every once in a while kind of taken that intensity a little bit and said, yeah, you know what, I'm doing some great safe things here. I can pick it up with some of these people, and got a little bit inspired by that intensity with some of your clients?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I would see, some people like going to their end limits, and I'm like, I might not require enough from my clients.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not pushing them hard enough, or maybe I'm not finding what's driving this person or someone that I'm training. So I think being in CrossFit, you do see that people, a whole group of people, we're talking 10, 12 people, all pushing to their personal end limits. It's not just one person in the group; it's everyone. So yeah, I have had that thought where it's like, maybe I'm not, requiring these people to train hard enough, or maybe I do need to put them in a group setting or get somebody else to train with them, or maybe I'm not just doing a good enough job motivating this person.
Yeah. Because I know
that thought does cross my mind for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Great stuff. Brendon, let's finish up here with our campaign to raise some money for you and your family. And you're pretty lucky in terms of, like I said, and lucky's not the right word, but you've worked really hard, and like I said before, it's important that thank God you set up, you're part of certified functional strength coach. Thank God now you can teach, and you can still do some of those things and to make up for some money, but you still have some financial issues. It's very expensive. You have a daughter. You're out there all alone. You had to start your business, and you're starting to get back on your feet. But we wanted to help you out with this T-shirt booster. We did it before with inner city weightlifting, and you were actually part of the inspiration for me to do that. After we talked at that time at Ranphones. So we're going to do this. We made a T-shirt. It's called Collect Moments, Not Things, and all the money will be going towards Brendon's medical expenses in his fight against aplastic anemia. And then what's very cool is, look, he's not a greedy guy. Any additional funds, once he knows he's okay, he's going to donate those to the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation. So this is going to the right place. We wouldn't have him on. He's part of our family, so obviously we want to make sure we take care of him, and he always gives back to other people. So I just wanted to mention, Brendon, what are some things that you kind of been struggling with right now for, going through all this stuff?
Well, then first off, I really appreciate you saying that, and I really appreciate you doing this fundraiser for me. So thank you for that, and thank you to everyone who's listening, who's donated before and is thinking about donating now. So I think the biggest thing for me has been, well, when I moved out here, I didn't work for a while, and then I started working, and I was sick, and I wasn't really able to work for the past 7 months. So I started working again 2 months ago, and thankfully I got some great clients that I've been able to pick up again. But really, it's been hard to. In the beginning, it was hard to put my pride aside and admit that I needed help. Because going from Boston to San Francisco is actually 30% more expensive. So that didn't make it easy. And then the medical bills, they pile up. And I mean, I'm not the only person who has medical expenses. And thankfully I had health care, or I have health care. So really that's what the money's going towards, to get that all settled, and to kind of give me time to build back up. And as you mentioned, as soon as I get told I'm in remission and I'm good to go, I'm donating the rest of that money to, I'm going to donate it to the Aplastic Anemia Foundation, and then I've also thought about donating it to some other people that are running campaigns in my life, because when I got diagnosed with this and I put my pride aside and I kind of came out with this, I was like, I could either suppress this and move forward like nothing is happening, or I could use this as a moment to inspire people and to bring awareness to things like this, that even though I'm 27 years old and presumably healthy, it could happen to you at any time. And actually, I just read the piece by Rhonda, Grief and the Strength Coach, and my sentiments are very much many of hers, even though she was dealing with a death. I'm dealing with a very serious disease, and that was a very interesting thing for me to do and kind of accept, was that vulnerability of putting myself out there. But I'm very, very glad I did it. I get phone calls all the time from people who have autoimmune diseases that I would have had no idea. And I had a friend get cancer recently, which was scary as hell, and we talked about it, and luckily he's also in a good place financially, so he could handle it, but a lot of people aren't. So it's just, you never know when it could happen to you. And I think I really want to end it with the one piece that I think the best thing that one of my clients said to me was, we all get something in life. You don't get to choose what you get, whether it's car accident, death, disease, cancer, whatever, but you do get to choose how you react to it. So I hope my story inspires people. And hopefully it's not me trying to impress them, and that's how they feel. Donate if you can. If you can't, totally cool. Just spread the word. If you can donate blood, donate blood. If you can join, Be the Match. So the cure for blood cancers is in the hands of ordinary people. So if you are willing to donate bone marrow to somebody who might need it, I might need it someday, who knows, join that registry. They're both free to give blood or to join the bone marrow registry. So if you don't have the money, you can do those two things. So just tell those that you love them, and I really appreciate you having this for me.
All right, great. Yeah, well, you know what? I've been inspired by the way you've reacted to this, and I think that is the most impressive thing. And, number one, like I said, you do a lot for this community, and you help a lot of people, and, it's inspiring to see, again, the way you've reacted to this. So I'll remind everybody, there's a link on strengthcoachpodcast.com, but it's to booster.com/collect moments. And that's booster.com/collect moments. Again, we're going to spread the word through Twitter. We're only going to do this for 12 days, all right? So get this thing going, get your shirt, and all these funds are going to Brendon and his expenses. So, Brendon, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Complete Strength and Power segment. I'm Robert Dosomedios, and today I want to talk a little bit about the topic I'm going to be presenting at the Complete Strength and Power Summit in May in Bloomington. The name of the topic, or basically what I'm covering, is power evolution. And what we're going to look at is basically, some traditional ways to improve power, like Olympic lifts, but also a little bit outside the box. So sometimes maybe a little user-friendly or equipment-friendly as well. So anything from, medicine balls to ultimate sandbags, kettlebells, lots of super band work, and that's going to be part of my tip today. So here's my tip. When we're working explosive power, the only reason we even use Olympic lifts, the only reason we do any jump type training is to get that quadruple extension. And I always go quadruple versus triple because I'm talking ankles, knees, hips, and low back. Because as we start to get a little bit of extension through the low back, we tend to have a better effort to get full extension. When we're not doing that, we sometimes will get full extension at the hips, but rarely. So that's why my tip today is going to be talking about essentially using Supermans. And when you in my hands-on, we'll be playing around with this as a group. But one of the big things I've found over the years is by putting a Superband around the hips and attaching it to another Superband with an anchor or a partner and doing something like a vertical jump or a split jump or a broad jump even, you're going to get a kind of a physical cue with the band around the hips. So the band's really kind of sucking the hips backwards, right? It's kind of keeping us from extending. So the more forcefully we think about extending the hips, the greater extension we're going to have because it just works in a chain. So as I do a broad jump and I kind of let my hips sink back, I might get full extension in my ankles and my knees, but my hips are never going to come through because the band's pulling it back. So I really have to be really conscious about that. So now we unload the body and we get into just a regular jump without the band, we start to see athletes really forcefully extend their hips, almost like that band is still there. So that's kind of my tip there, is to kind of do movements and include equipment that would force that forceful extension. And just having that physical cue of the band pulling back on the hips lets you know if I don't forcefully extend, I'm never going to get my hips through. So That's my tip there. Hopefully that helps. For more information and get really deep into this topic, obviously come to the Complete Strength and Power Summit in Bloomington, Indiana, May 21st and 22nd. For more info, go to www.speedandpowersummit.com. Thanks. Do work.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 182 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Special thanks to Chris Pryor, Aaron McGurr, and the folks over at Perform Better. You can check them out at performbetter.com for all their products and info on their educational seminars. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Brendon Rearick for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning and performance enhancement. Please think about buying a t-shirt at booster.com/collect moments to help contribute. We have a nice Collect Moments, Not Things t-shirt, and all proceeds are going to help Brendon with his expenses. Alan Cosgrove for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Brett Jones in Functional Movement Systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. Brent Calloway for his insights into the art of coaching with Exos. Check them out at teamexos.com/education. Coach Dose and the Complete Speed and Power Summit. Check them out at speedandpowersummit.com. They only have a few spots left. And of course, remember you can join strengthcoach.com and have access to the site for just $1. 3 days, just $1. When your 3-day trial is over and you become a member, you'll be able to download Coach Boyle's 2 books. And if you have a staff of 2 or more and you want to sign up as a group, we have a special membership offer for you, up to 50% off. Go check it out at strengthcoach.com. My name's Anthony Rana, and you can reach me at strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.